Jimi Hendrix, popular electric guitarist and idol of the acid rock generation, died today in London, apparently from an overdose of drugs.
He was saying, man, I heard all about you guys. He was putting the strings on the guitar, and I'm listening.
Everyone is suddenly talking about Jimi Hendrix again. At first, I thought it was just nostalgia kicking in. You know how the internet loves to romanticize the legends. But no, this isn't just another legend appreciation moment. This is the kind of buzz that shakes timelines and breaks the algorithm. Because what's coming out now, it's amazing. There's something so big, so unexpected, so deeply personal about why everyone's talking about Jimi Hendrix again. And once you hear it, you'll understand exactly why. So sit tight, grab a snack, and don't even think about skipping ahead. Let's get into it. The new documentaries that changed everything. There are these two new documentaries that have completely reignited the world's love for Hendrix. And honestly, they don't just remind you of how brilliant he was, they kind of make you feel like you're right there with him, watching the magic happen in real time. And the best part? They're not just rehashing the same old stories. No, these films dive so deep into the untold, messy, glorious, heartbreaking, inspiring truth behind the man, the myth, the literal guitar god. Let's start with the first one, Electric Lady Studios, A Jimi Hendrix Vision. It dropped in September 2024, and it is so much more than a music doc. It's like, okay, have you ever heard someone talk about turning pain or chaos into something beautiful? That's literally what this is. It tells the wild story of how Hendrix took this failing, crumbling nightclub in Manhattan and transformed it into something that had never been done before. A fully artist-owned, cutting-edge recording studio. Not just any studio either, one where creativity wasn't just allowed, it was the whole point. And guess what? This wasn't some cushy, smooth sailing project. No, this was hard. Money problems, construction nightmares, setbacks left and right. Yet Hendrix kept pushing, pouring his soul and vision into the walls of that place. You ever noticed how some legends never really go away? They just come back when the world needs them most? Well, right now, everybody's talking about Jimi Hendrix again. And no, it's not just old fans feeling nostalgic. Something big just happened. Something good. And it's got music lovers, historians, and even young people buzzing. But why now? What changed? Is it a lost recording? A secret story from his past? Or maybe something that finally set the record straight about who he really was? The answers are wild, unexpected, and honestly, kind of beautiful. Stick around till the very end, because once you find out the real reason everyone's falling in love with Jimi all over again, you'll understand why his story is far from over. And you want to know something that really blew minds? Everyone always thought he barely recorded anything there, like 10 weeks of work and that was it. But the documentary totally shatters that idea. Turns out, he was in that studio almost non-stop for 4 whole months before he died, working on what would have been this massive, ambitious double album. Can you imagine what the world might have heard if he'd had more time? It's heartbreaking, but also kind of poetic in its own way. Anyway, the documentary isn't just voiceovers and old clips. It's packed with real, personal interviews from the people who were right there with him. Steve Winwood, who jammed with him the very first night the studio opened. Bassist Billy Cox, members of the original staff who literally helped build the place. And of course, the legendary Eddie Kramer. And Eddie, oh man, the way he talks about Jimi, you can hear the love and awe in his voice. He tells these amazing stories about how Jimi would say things like, "Hey man, I want some purple over there and green right here." Like he was painting a mood instead of decorating a room. That studio wasn't just a place to record, it was his. A space that mirrored the inside of his wildly creative, color-soaked brain. And here's the cherry on top. They're releasing this deluxe box set with the film that has 39 tracks. 39. And 38 of them have never even been released before. We're talking demos, alternate versions, jam sessions, And this one insane 26-minute-long spontaneous track where Hendrix just lets his creativity run absolutely wild. Like, who even does that? Who just loses themselves in music for 26 minutes and somehow makes it work? Only Hendrix. But here's where it really gets you in the feels. Even though Hendrix didn't live to see what Electric Lady would become, his dream outlived him in the most beautiful way. Can you believe that artists like David Bowie, AC/DC, The Clash, John Lennon, Beyoncé, Stevie Wonder, and so many others have recorded there? That studio is still alive. It's still soaking in genius. And that's because of him. That's his legacy, echoing through every sound that's ever come out of those walls. Now, as if that wasn't enough to make you tear up a little, there's another film coming, and this one is about to be huge. It's simply called Jimi. Yep, that's it. Just Jimi. Because honestly, that name says it all, right? It's the first authorized full-length documentary on Hendrix's life, and it's being directed by Bao Nguyen, the guy behind The Greatest Night in Pop. So you already know it's gonna be epic. What makes this one so special is that it's backed completely by the Hendrix estate, meaning they're finally giving fans the real inside scoop. No more guesswork or shady assumptions. This is the story straight from the people who actually knew him. And it's all about his time in London, which, according to his sister Jimi Hendrix, was when his creativity just exploded. Like, have you ever had a season in your life where everything just clicked? That was London for Jimi. He wasn't just writing songs, he was shaping music history. Bao Nguyen talks about how he wants the film to really pull people into the heart of the 1960s London music scene, to feel the energy, the chaos, the color, the vibe. And of course, it all builds up to that legendary moment at the 1967 Monterey Pop Festival. You know the one, right? When Hendrix basically lit the entire world on fire and, well, also his guitar. That performance wasn't just a concert. It was a cultural reset. People saw him burn that guitar and knew in that very second that music would never be the same again. The team behind the film has been digging through old footage, photographs, and interviews like they're archaeologists on a mission. They're curating every second with so much care and attention to detail. It's clear they're not just making a film, they're building a time machine. And you know what? It kinda makes you wonder, how many legends do we really know? How many stories are buried under headlines and hearsay? Both of these documentaries are doing something magical. They're not just looking back, they're pulling Hendrix forward into the now. They are making people stop, think, and feel what made him so revolutionary in the first place. And they're reminding us that true genius, it doesn't fade, it doesn't get old, it just waits for the right time to rise again. Unreleased music and rare finds resurface. Over 50 years after Jimi Hendrix passed away, this man is still surprising the world like he just stepped out of the studio. I mean, how does that even happen? Most artists drop an album or two after they're gone, maybe some lost tracks, a few remastered live performances, you know, the usual. But Hendrix? No. He's literally out here rolling out music from the grave like he never left. It's almost like his vault is this bottomless time capsule that just keeps opening up at the perfect moment. And now, there's this crazy new batch of never-before-heard demo tapes from 1968 that just popped up. And everyone, from hardcore music historians to casual fans, is losing their minds. And honestly, who wouldn't? So here's where it gets wild. These demo tapes didn't turn up in some official archive or museum vault. Nope, they came from the personal assistant of Hendrix's former manager. Like, imagine just cleaning out an old drawer, and boom, there's a piece of music history chilling under some paperwork. And we're not just talking scraps or fuzzy bootlegs here. These are master tapes, people. Master tapes. And they've got 4 unheard Hendrix demos from his peak creative period in 1968, with the man's actual handwriting on the labels. And the tracks? They're not just random experiments either. These are early versions of Up From the Skies, Ain't No Telling, Little Miss Lover, and Stone Free. Now, 3 of those tracks made it onto Axis. Bold as Love, a total game-changer of an album, and Stone Free was one of his breakout singles. So just imagine getting to hear those songs as they were being born, before they were polished and perfected. It's like stepping into the studio with him while the ideas are still hot off the strings. What really gives this whole discovery that extra whoa factor is that the recordings came from his time in London, which was one of his most creatively explosive periods. That city, that time, it was magic for Hendrix. He was recording, experimenting, evolving like crazy, and now we're getting to hear it raw and unfiltered. These tapes used to belong to Mike Jeffrey, who was his manager back then, so this stuff is as close to the source as it gets. And here's the kicker. These demo tapes might go for up to £200,000 at auction. That's like $261,000 for 7 minutes of music. 7 minutes! Can you imagine? That's the kind of money people usually drop on a house, but I get it. I really do. Because to a serious Hendrix collector, this isn't just music. It's a piece of his soul. It's history captured on tape, and it's one of those you-had-to-be-there kinds of things. Except now, thanks to these tapes, you kind of can be there. But wait, there's more. And this part is kind of bittersweet. Whoever buys the tapes can't share them publicly. No streaming, no uploading, no letting the world hear. It's private use only. Can you imagine having your own secret Hendrix session that no one else is allowed to hear? Like, what even is that level of flex? That's beyond bragging rights. That's I own a musical time machine kind of energy. And while it's a little heartbreaking that we might not get to hear them ourselves, there's something kind of poetic about it too. Like, Hendrix still gets to have this little secret that only one person gets to uncover. And as if that wasn't enough to get music lovers freaking out, there's also this crazy rare live recording of Hendrix doing session work for Little Richard back in 1965. That just got sold too. Before he was the Jimi Hendrix we all know, he was this session guitarist just hustling behind the scenes. And to have a recording from that time, that's like seeing a baby picture of a legend, but in stereo. It just shows you how deep his roots really go. What's wild is that all of this is just showing up now. Like, this deep into the 2020s, we're still discovering new angles to Hendrix's story. And that says something, doesn't it? About how deep his artistry really ran, about how much he left behind, not just songs, but pieces of himself. Every tape, every scribbled note, every forgotten demo, it all adds up to this ongoing story that still hasn't finished being told. And honestly, it makes you wonder, what else is out there? What other hidden gems are still tucked away in basements, boxes, and closets, just waiting to be found? Jimi Hendrix is trending again. And no, it's not some boring music anniversary or re-release. People are genuinely talking, debating, and celebrating him in a whole new way. Even the folks who never listened to rock are suddenly calling him a genius. So, what's behind this sudden Hendrix renaissance? Is it something from his personal life? A secret about his final days? Or is the world just finally ready to appreciate him the right way? Whatever it is, it's huge. And we're about to break it all down. Stay with us to the very end. Because once you hear why people are giving Jimi Hendrix the love he always deserved. Electric Lady Studios. The Electric Lady Studios isn't just any studio. This is the studio that Jimi Hendrix, yes, the Jimi Hendrix, dreamed up and brought to life. And when I say this place has history, I mean real music history dripping from the walls. It's been around for over 50 years, still going strong, and it's got this magic that just keeps pulling artists in like a magnet. Isn't that kind of wild? Like, how does a building manage to be that iconic and still totally relevant? Now, let me tell you the story because, whew, it's a ride. So back in 1968, Hendrix and his manager Michael Jeffrey bought this place called The Generation, which used to be a nightclub. Jimi had actually jammed there a few times, you know, just casually showing up and melting people's faces with his guitar. At first, he wanted to bring it back as a nightclub, which honestly makes sense considering the vibe he was into. But then his engineer, Eddie Kramer, stepped in like, "Hold up, Jimi, what are you even saying right now?" And this part cracks me up because Kramer literally said, "Why do you want to build a nightclub? That's crazy." And honestly, fair question. You're Jimi Hendrix. Why not think bigger? So then Kramer hits him with some real talk. He's like, "Do you even realize how much you spend every year on studio time?" It was like $250,000 back then, which is crazy money for the 60s. And then, boom, light bulb moment. Instead of just making a cool little club, they decided to build a studio. The studio. But not just any regular recording space with square walls and cold vibes. Oh no. Jimmy wanted this thing to feel alive. He wanted color, curves, soft textures, and wild lighting. He basically wanted a psychedelic spaceship where creativity could just explode. And guess who brought that vision to life? A 22-year-old architect named John Storick. He literally told Storick things like, "Put some purple on that wall and green over there." And honestly, they weren't just building a studio, they were building a whole experience. But oof, building it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. There were so many problems. For starters, there was this literal stream, Minetta Brook, flowing under the building. Like actual water under their feet. Can you imagine trying to build a high-end recording studio and realizing the ground is basically soggy? So they had to install water pumps under the floor, and those pumps are still running to this day. And don't even get me started on the money problems. Poor Jimmy kept having to hit the road and do gigs just to fund the construction. Kramer even said the whole thing was a nightmare, like they were constantly running out of cash. It's almost poetic, though, Jimmy working his tail off to fund this creative haven that he really believed in. Then finally, the big moment, August 26, 1970. That's when Electric Lady officially opened. And oh my God, the guest list? A whole lineup of music royalty. Steve Winwood, Eric Clapton, Ron Wood, Patti Smith. Like legends just casually pulling up to celebrate this magical space. And get this, Hendrix only got to record there for 10 weeks before he died. 10 weeks. Isn't that just heartbreaking? He poured so much energy, passion, and money into building this dream space, and then he was gone before he could really live in it. Even when the studio hit rough patches, and it did hit some hard times, people who really believed in it stepped in to save it. In 2010, Keith Stoltz and Lee Foster took the reins, renovated the heck out of the place, and added some gorgeous new rooms like this dope Studio C on the 3rd floor, with a private lounge. They didn't just keep the doors open, they brought fresh life into Hendrix's vision. Isn't that just the most beautiful full-circle moment? And now, today, people aren't just recording there because of the history. Although, let's be real, that's a pretty epic reason. They go there because there's this vibe, a feeling, a soul. Artists say it all the time. It's the vibe. You walk in and you just know something magical can happen. It's got the technical excellence, sure, but it also just feels warm, inspiring, like the walls are cheering you on. You've got folks like Adele, Jay-Z, ASAP Rocky, U2, John Mayer, Frank Ocean, St. Vincent, Lord, and John Batiste all laying down tracks there. And Taylor Swift? Oh, she's basically part of the Electric Lady furniture at this point. She's recorded chunks of Lover, Folklore, Midnights, and even her re-recorded albums there. If that doesn't tell you something about the energy in that place, I don't know what does. The spirit of Hendrix and Ghost Stories' Electric Lady Studios is not just some regular old recording spot tucked away in New York. It's more like a living, breathing piece of music history that somehow still hums with energy. But what kind of energy? Well, that's the part that gives people goosebumps. But Electric Lady, that place, it's on a whole different level. People don't just go in there to make music. They go in, and some of them come out with wild stories that make you tilt your head and go, "Wait, are you serious?" And get this, these aren't random YouTubers making stuff up. We're talking about Grammy-winning producers, seasoned engineers, the very people who've built their careers behind those famous mixing boards. These are folks who know the difference between feedback from a mic and something not of this world. Take Michael Brower, for instance. Yeah, the Michael Brower, multi-Grammy award-winning mixer. This guy doesn't rattle easily. He's worked with Coldplay, John Mayer, Aretha Franklin, you name it. But even he's got a story that'll make the hair on your arm stand straight up. It's one of those super late-night sessions. You know, the kind where everyone's half asleep, half zoned in, and time just feels weird. Brower catches something in the corner of his eye. His assistant, or so he thinks, heading to the lounge area. No big deal, right? He calls out a few times, but the silence? Deafening. So he gets up to check, maybe thinking the guy just didn't hear him. And guess what? His assistant walks in from the opposite direction, looking confused. Turns out, the dude had been in the bathroom the whole time. So who, or what, did Brower see heading to the lounge? And he's not the only one. Another engineer, who kept his name hush-hush, said he and a co-worker actually saw someone stroll past the studio and straight into the live room. Now, live rooms don't exactly have hiding spots, so naturally, he follows, probably expecting to find someone messing around or maybe a lost assistant. Instead, nada. Just the TV buzzing with static. And let's pause here for a second. Static on a TV in a professional studio that's usually pristine? That alone is creepy. But wait, it gets better or worse, depending on how brave you are. This same engineer later spotted something that honestly sounds like a movie moment. A silver dress just shimmering next to the patch bay. It wasn't on anyone, it wasn't hanging. It was just there, shimmering. Then, poof, gone in a blink. Like what? And then, there's his overnight stay. Oh man, this part gives me the chills just writing about it. He says he woke up halfway through the night, that groggy kind of half-sleep, and saw an old man staring directly into his face. Just standing there, silent, no sound, no movement, just there. Can you imagine? Waking up and locking eyes with a stranger in the dark, only to realize this isn't someone who should be in the room, and you're stuck between sleep and wakefulness, unsure if it's real or just your brain playing tricks. But the way he tells it, it felt real, vivid, not some fuzzy dream or sleep paralysis, like real. Now, if it were just random people talking like this, you might shrug it off. But Eddie Kramer, that man is basically a walking Hendrix encyclopedia. He was Hendrix's engineer, for crying out loud. He's been in the room when Jimi laid down iconic guitar solos that changed music forever. And even he gets weirded out when people bring up the haunting. When he says he gets chills just thinking about the studio's energy, you listen. In his words, Hendrix lived in that studio during the late 60s. It wasn't just a work spot for Jimi, it was a part of him. Kramer genuinely believes Jimi's spirit never really left. He says it's like Jimi is in the walls, in the ceiling, maybe even in the air itself. And honestly, that checks out, because according to him, almost everyone who walks in there feels it. That something, that spark or shadow or whisper that tells you this place is sacred and maybe even watched. But it's not all spooky vibes and cold spots. Jimi's sister, Jimi Hendrix, has her own take. And her version is kind of beautiful in a way. She doesn't think it's haunted, not in the scary haunted house type of way. She describes it more like a warm, peaceful presence, like Jimi's energy is still floating around, not to freak anyone out, but to bless the music, maybe even guide it. And I love that, don't you? The idea that instead of scaring people, he's sort of hanging around like a protective older brother, quietly cheering musicians on. Then there's Anthony DeCurtis, a respected music critic who's seen it all. He says musicians have long whispered about the ghosts of Electric Lady, but not like ghouls hiding in the closet. These ghosts, he says, are more like reminders, standards, legends. You walk in there and you're immediately aware that this is the same space where greatness was born. And that thought alone, that pressure and inspiration, it lingers. It pushes artists to reach higher, dig deeper, and play better. Because if Jimmy's watching, or whatever's left of him, you don't want to disappoint. Even Lee Foster, the current studio manager, seems to believe in this vibe. He says if Jimmy really is watching, then he's probably proud. Proud of how the place evolved. Proud of the timeless albums that keep coming out of those soundproofed walls. From Patti Smith's poetic rebellion in Horses to Britney Spears' pop powerhouse moment, this studio's not just coasting on its past, it's still shaping the future. And maybe Jimmy's spirit is still vibing with every bass line and guitar riff that rolls through. All of a sudden, Jimi Hendrix music is everywhere. People who weren't even born when he died are now quoting him, streaming his songs, and digging into his life like it just happened yesterday. So what's going on? Stick around, because the deeper we go, the more mind-blowing it gets. And by the end, you'll see why Jimi Hendrix is more relevant now than ever before. Hendrix's influence on modern music. Jimi Hendrix has been gone for over 50 years, but somehow he's still everywhere. Not in the obvious, you'll hear him on a dad rock station kind of way, but in the deep, sneaky, almost spiritual threads that run through today's music. It's like his sound has been reincarnated in all these new forms, in places you wouldn't expect. That means young folks today aren't just bumping his tracks out of curiosity or school assignments. They're feeling something in his music that still hits hard in 2 through 25. That kind of timeless appeal? It's rare. And let's talk about how the man's essence has found a whole new life in hip-hop and R&B. You'd think Hendrix and hip-hop wouldn't mix, right? Two totally different vibes. But no, hip-hop artists get him. Public Enemy, for example, they didn't just admire him from afar, they built a sonic bridge straight to him. Their track, Night of the Living Bassheads, straight up pulls from Hendrix's Who Knows, and that ain't no coincidence. They saw the fire in his sound and said, yeah, let's bring that energy into our revolution. And A Tribe Called Quest? They flipped Foxy Lady in their Scenario remix. And you can just feel Hendrix grinning somewhere in the universe, knowing his riffs got folded into a hip-hop classic. Now, let's shift gears a bit. Frank Ocean, smooth, moody, poetic. Frank, he's got Hendrix all in his DNA too. Listen to Pink Plus White, and you'll hear it, not as a sample, but in the feel. Those gentle, dreamy guitar lines, that's Hendrix whispering through the strings. And J. Cole didn't even try to be subtle. January 28th is basically a love letter to Hendrix's Purple Haze. That iconic riff? It shows up like a wink to anyone paying attention. And don't even get me started on Andre 3000. Like, is there anyone who wears Hendrix's spirit more boldly? The fashion, the fearless creativity, the genre-defying sound. Andre didn't just inherit Hendrix's legacy, he embodies it. That's why people call him the hip-hop Hendrix. Honestly, it fits. But it's not just about direct references or samples. It's bigger than that. Hendrix changed the entire game when it comes to sound. He didn't just play the guitar, he bent it, broke it, reimagined it. He made noise into music and music into magic. That kind of innovation, it planted seeds. And those seeds have bloomed in some of the most powerful artists of our time. Take Kendrick Lamar, for example. To Pimp a Butterfly is filled with these psychedelic, soul-stretching sounds that totally echo Hendrix's fearless experimentation. It's like Kendrick took Hendrix's blueprint and reworked it for the 21st century. Then there's The Weeknd, his distorted, haunting vocal effects. Yeah, they feel like Hendrix's guitar riffs got translated into voice. And Tyler, the creator, the man builds soundscapes that are so textured, so layered, so intentional, it's hard not to hear the Hendrix influence lurking in the background. So, the real question is, why does Hendrix still hit so hard? Like, why does a guy who shredded guitars in the 1960s still speak to listeners raised on digital beats and algorithmic playlists? Well, part of it is his authenticity. See, back in the day, most guitarists were obsessed with being technically perfect. You know, clean lines, precision playing, following the rules. But Hendrix? He didn't care about rules. He made mistakes sound cool. He made chaos sound beautiful. That raw, unfiltered honesty, it connects. Especially now, when so many people are craving realness in a world that's often too polished, too fake. Musicians today are more about emotion than perfection, and that's the energy Hendrix was serving way back then. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.